All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the All Systems Go podcast. We invite startup founders and digital marketers of all walks to discuss strategies and software used to build automated marketing and sales systems that scale. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis, and today I have with me Julian Juenemann of Measure School. And Julian learned the ropes of digital marketing in different startups he co-founded and quickly became fascinated with how data driven this world can be. And after launching his consultancy, JJ Analytics, in 2013, he began helping other businesses adopt the data driven way to digital marketing. You all know how I feel about data, and we've got data driven and data. What was it? There's two ways you can be data driven or data informed. So we're going to talk about the data driven approach. And in 2015, Julian launched Measure School. It's a YouTube channel. You may have seen him. For those of you who aren't watching the video, his voice may sound familiar. If you've been in the analytics space and even automation, is really hard not to come by Julian. In fact, I found him through YouTube many years ago. And he teaches a new way of marketing to others with over 150,000 subscribers. It's become the leading source for many marketers to learn these data driven methods. All right. Today, I have Julian to talk to us all about how to collect data throughout the entire customer journey. Julian, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you very much for having me, Dave, and Chris. And yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Great, great. I have to tell you, as an engineer by trade, I love numbers. Okay. Um, and I'll be honest with you, Julian, me and data have like a love-hate relationship right now. I love it when it's given to me, but it can be quite challenging determining how to get the data from my marketing and sales presented to me in a way where I can start making decisions. Okay. So it becomes kind of like, what points should I measure? And then how do I get those measured points presented to me in a way that I can make those decisions. But I know you've got a YouTube channel, and I know you've been digital marketing. Tell us a little bit about your journey up into that point. Were you always in the analytics, or were you living another life, and this life found you?
Yeah, I started out, I guess, in these different startups that I co-founded and helped to build over the years. And there I was always a digital marketer. I first learned
Mm,
SEO, how to get up on the search engines, and then I quickly entered the PPC game. AdWords was pretty big back then. Facebook was up and coming, and there is where anybody who has done PPC, you are actually spending money to not really get people to your website. You first of all try to gather data, and you actually pay for data. Google is a great machine to spend your money to know which customers actually react to your advertising and how you are able to buy them most cheaply and efficiently, how to get them to your website and then buy your product.
mm,
And that is great data that we can use then throughout our marketing, throughout our business, and informs decision in the end. So when I was doing PPC, I really saw the power of data because you are able to make decisions and really influence the marketing of your product, of your website through data. And that's when I first fell in love with it and really got up and looked into many different areas of analytics. Google Analytics was back then out there, and most of the time it was not installed correctly. So when I went out on my
yeah.
own, I really wanted to do analytics, but my clients mostly didn't really have the data to make decisions. And that's when I really dug into also the technical bits of analytics. Google Tag Manager came along, one of my favorite tools to actually build in tracking onto a website and then
Mhm.
track whatever you need in order to make decisions. And that's what it's all about. In the end, you want to get to that point where data actually does something for you, where you are able to make a decision based on the data, and that's when you get an ROI or value from your data as well.
Yes, yes. So you've navigated many modes, and you've worn many hats in the startups, and it sounds like analytics is what really stuck, right? That's the one where you say, hey, look, there's the difference maker. For me, Julian, as I didn't of course start out in startups, more corporate background for me, but when I started to learn entrepreneurship, I was intrigued by, of course, the leverage, being able to make money from something ongoing without having to always work for it. That was kind of like a shock to my system, thinking that, oh, the only way to make more money is to work more hours. You mean I could work less hours? With technology. And as I dove into it and started to buy courses and everything, what piqued my interest was the back end systems. It was like, okay, it's not the website that's making money. Okay, it's not the graphics. It's not all of this. And then you go on the back, it's like, oh, it's the system and how you communicate, ongoing, your ability to receive money, and that's what grabbed me. Again, as an engineer, I need data. I need data to make decisions. I need data to just, whether it's anecdotal or qualitative, quantitative, I need it all. I need all types of data. So when we talk about the data, collecting data throughout the customer journey, let's build upon this thing, Julian. If you were to define the customer journey, what is the point that it starts and what is the point that it stops? Just so we understand under which confines we'll be talking about these data points.
Yeah, when I think of data and when I actually start measuring it or when I get the first data points, it's when your customer becomes aware of the solution that you have for them or the product that you have for them. Once
Mm,
that happens, we already can start measuring data throughout the journey. Then, once they come to your website, obviously, once they buy your product, once they become a customer, up until to that point where you try to retain them and make sure that they stay a customer or resell them a product as well. So there's a lot of data that you can gather throughout this customer lifetime and the journey that the user goes through, and optimize that journey so you can
okay.
make more profit.
Yeah, got it. So we'll go from awareness to retention.
Yeah,
That's
let's
that's the
try
journey we'll
that.
talk about. And what I'm gonna do is, Julian, I'm gonna give you the floor and I'll jump in, but let me set the table. Um, our listeners, doesn't matter if they're digital marketers or entrepreneurs. I've seen both struggle with data. And the question becomes, okay, what do I start measuring? And what does that tell me? So initially for me, it's like, well, you want to measure the traffic that's coming to your site and then the leads, right? That's your first conversion. And then beyond that, it's like, okay, then customers. It's like, whoa, there's data points within there you should look at as well. So for you, if you were to walk a business through, all right, we've got data, we've been doing stuff online, Julian. It's working because we're making money, and you ask to see their dashboard. We don't have one. We just kind of produce
Mhm.
content and make money. How would you walk them through identifying those data collection points?
Right. It's an individual journey, first of all. So
Yeah.
everything that I will say is probably more generalized. But when we start out looking at awareness, that's obviously on the marketing side. So knowing where your customers hang out and then marketing to them and really putting your marketing techniques under scrutiny of saying, okay, if I write something on somebody else's blog, or if I do PPC advertising or SEO, how much do I actually put into this? How much do I get out of it? And there we have definitely ways to track. Some have become under scrutiny lately, but if we are looking at, for example, PPC, which is the easiest journey, we actually get data already from the advertising network. How many people have actually
Hmm.
seen our advertising? How many
Hmm.
people have clicked on our advertising? From that, we can calculate CTR, and then also the people who came to our website. Now, when they come to our website, they come there for different purposes. Sometimes they're just discovering your website, but oftentimes they already making a buying decision. And if we have a classic e-commerce shop, then we want to know what is their journey throughout the website. So did they go to a category page? Which products did they click on? Which products did they put into the cart? And then go through the checkout. And then the most important part, and this is really the metric that everybody should track, is the conversion, right? Whatever that means for you, conversion can be a purchase, can be a lead that fills out your form, could be a sign up to your game that you're maybe selling. And once you have that lead information, you can connect it back to the awareness stage. So you can actually say which traffic source that I have available here and that I used in the last few weeks has yielded the biggest impact in terms of conversions. Where did I get most of my conversions from? And this is classic optimization then, that you say, I put my budget towards the traffic methods that work better, and maybe shifted away from those that haven't given me the results.
Yeah.
And this is really a really easy technique that people can follow, just knowing where does the traffic come from. In our analytics world, we often talk about UTMs there, and then measuring your conversions. If you have these two measurement points actually set up, then you are already further ahead than, let's say, 80% of many marketers out there.
Yeah, this makes sense, and I'm gonna walk us through this point by point, and I want to ask you something as we go through each one of them and let you clarify. So I know you mentioned PPC is the easiest to get started because you've got the information, the advertising that you've placed in the platform, and they'll let you know how many people they put it in front of and how many people have clicked on it. So if you're testing messaging, if you're testing angles, if you're test anything that you're testing, you can at least get a pulse and say, okay, this is resonating. Would you say if you were on the more organic side, let's say you're posting on social media to a group, posting on your page, or whatever the case may be, in that event, would you then use a shortened URL with UTMs to give you that same type of data?
Well, obviously, the PPC side is very much more on the data side, because the platforms want you to get more data in order
Yep.
to spend more money with them. Now,
Yep.
with organic forms, it's a little bit harder, and there's a time component to it as well. But there's always something to measure there. So yes, you're right. If you have a post where you put in a link, a shortened link, for example, that you can track, so you actually know when people click on it, how many people clicked on it, then that's a great measure to know how effective your post was in the first instance there, right? And sometimes these platforms, even Facebook, gives you data as well on your organic posts as well. Harder,
Hmm.
it's obviously harder to do with something like SEO. We have a little bit of data on from the Search Console, for example, on how often a search result is seen. But then actually optimizing that, the levers are just much harder to pull, right?
Yeah.
It's not as easy as turning off and on money like it is with PPC. But yeah, there are always techniques, and one of the biggest ones is, if you don't do anything else, is to tag your links with UTMs. A shortened link could also already be enough. If you route it through something like Bitly, then you know, and Bitly gives you that data, how many people have clicked on that link and how many
Yeah.
people went through that link. That's already great information.
Yeah, and listeners, it's twofold. The shortened link will tell you link clicks, but Bitly users, I use Rebrandly. Any URL shortening software will also allow you to add UTMs. Well, you say, well, why do I need UTMs? Though Bitly or Rebrandly will track your links, the UTMs will inform Google the type of content that they are engaging with based on how you define it. Google is not going to define it. You get to define UTM source, UTM medium, UTM content, keyword, all of those things.
Yeah.
So if this is what is a UTM, look at that later. But it's a way to inform Google on where your traffic is coming from,
Yeah.
because this becomes important to your second point, Julian. You talked about capture. It could be capturing a lead. It could be capturing information for a sales call, a demo. Somebody could be signing up for software. So that capture point gets dynamic, right? It's really tough to have a general capture point. But at that point of capture, you have now gone from anonymous data to known data, right?
Um, Theoretically, yes. Obviously,
Hmm.
if you have a conversion that you would track that is just a button click or just an action that this anonymous user took on your website,
Mm,
you wouldn't be at that point yet.
yeah.
But it's true. If you have something like an email opt-in form, you go from data that this user is just another guy on your website to somebody that you can actually identify and even have a conversation with if you use automation tools, email marketing, and so on.
Yeah. And the important part is this, everybody. If I see um a lot of traffic is coming from Facebook, I don't know who that is. I can look at trends for the most part and see which platform is giving me the most traffic. I can see it over time, things of that nature. Trends are great. But if I want to look inside of those trends and say, who are the people coming from Facebook? This is where the UTMs or any form of lead attribution lead source attribution comes into play, because when you put a face to the name, or I should say, when you put a name to the trend, or even more accurate, when you put an email to the trend, all right, now I can start to nurture that lead. And all sources are not equal. So, though in this random example that I'm bringing up, Facebook may be sending a lot of traffic, when I start to identify those people in my CRM, because I'm capturing the source that they came from, because I'm tagging my URL, I can see, man, these Facebook leads, I'm getting a lot of them, but they're not converting. Strangely enough, Twitter is sending me half the leads, but double the conversion rate, right?
Yeah,
And it becomes a game now where just at the capture point of a lead, we're starting to be informed with the quality
yeah.
of the lead, right?
And it's actually also interesting in terms of what is going on in analytics currently. Everybody knows that not everybody is purchasing maybe in the first session, maybe even not on the
Mm,
same device. Maybe they got aware of you on their mobile
yes.
device, opted into
Ooh.
your email list, but they actually later purchase on a desktop device. Now, once you have that information in your CRM system of that individual user, and you know, okay, the first instance that they came through to my website was from Facebook, you will be able to much better track them later on, because when they purchase, maybe 1 week down the line, you will be able to know this lead came originally from that source at the beginning when he signed up. And that is not always possible when you have a business, like, for example, an e-commerce store, where people don't usually leave their lead information before they
Yeah.
purchase. They just
Yeah.
go there and buy right away, or they leave the website. So having a CRM in place, or something that makes the user actually identify themselves, give them your email address, can be immensely powerful in terms of the data that you're gathering.
Yeah, and one trick that I've done, everybody in my automation service provider program that has gone through it, and even those in the community, know I love to hide fields.
Oh
I
yeah,
I w- I will hide a field. I don't know if I have too many forms online that don't have hidden fields, and it's just a way for me to populate.
oh yeah,
Sometimes it's a link within my website. I'll tag the URL and capture it that way. If I'm doing a training with another person's community, right, I'll
yeah,
give them a URL that expands and tags, because sometimes, depending, if you're a service-based business, this big influx of leads all the time. CPA, dentist, anybody, fitness trainer, maybe 100 leads a month is like, wow, we did really good, right? But it wouldn't be unrealistic for you to be able to anecdotally look at some of your leads and the sources that they're coming from and start to make decisions from that.
yeah,
You don't necessarily, I'm treading lightly here. You should have a dashboard. You don't, if you're just getting started and you have a question that's like, how did you hear about us? Right? Is usually how most people start with their source attribution,
true.
which isn't always the truth, by the way, but it at least gets you in the game to start to understand, okay, these are the sources that are sending me traffic. The next step is to not rely on somebody to tell you, but to know from their behavior. And those are things that we're talking about: clicking, link tagging, URL tagging, and all of those things.
Yeah, and I must agree. Hidden form fields are the best kept secret, as these CRMs are basically databases, and
Yes.
you can push information in there. And if you think of tracking, that is another informational field that you can fill with whatever information you want. We
Yeah.
usually use it to connect. So there's an identifier inside of Google Analytics, for example, which is called the client ID, and we connect that to a hidden form field. So we'll be able to later look up the customer who has bought from us or who has signed up in Google Analytics, and then you can see everything in terms of like what they clicked on and
Oh
so
my
on. So it can
goodness.
be really powerful in terms of connecting also these pieces together.
Yes. And now, Julian, you blew me away. Everybody, that was a true gasp if you heard it. I had, out of all of the data that I put in hidden fields, I hadn't thought of the client ID from Google Analytics to tie the anonymous visit data to
Yep,
an actual individual. Now we're talking about full customer journey here. I know
absolutely,
what you
yeah.
did before I knew you. And now that I know you, I can see what you've done. And you're using Google Analytics throughout the customer journey, but now you everybody listening, we've gone from them being on the website, doing something maybe even on platforms external to our website, and when they get on our website, we're able to say, hey, you came from here and look at what you're doing. Then they give us information, capture point. They give us information, and now they're known. Though Google is still looking at the pages they visit, buttons that they click, we now have this additional opportunity to gain insight from a CRM. So we can start to see email behavior. We can start to see if you've got a membership site, or if you're sending events back to your CRM from your platform. We can start to see the events that
Mhm.
they're participating in. And now the data starts to be a little more juicy, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm starting to really understand hopefully who my primary customer is. So, Julian, I know I'm asking a lot, and it's very hard to stay general for some people to get understanding, and sometimes we need a tangible example. But if you would take something similar to like a business that has a that sells an online course.
Hmm.
All right. So you may have a lead magnet up front. That's your capture. And after that, you want to nurture them to get them to enroll in your course. In that event, everything that we've spoken about thus far still stands, right? All good. But now I've got the client ID too, so I can see your behavior. What am I doing now, Julian, that I know you and I have this ability to reach you with messaging and really understand more about you? What am I measuring? What am I looking for? What indicators to help me get them to enroll?
Right. I think from an analysis standpoint, what I would probably do without going too specific here is
Hmm.
probably that I would first look at the behavior of those that actually go through the funnel or make a purchase in the end. What do these people have in common?
Yeah.
And then we can help them along the journey with all the automation tools that we have available by reminding them of certain things, helping them to make a decision. And that is possible by looking at, first of all, the data of people who have successfully converted. What do they have in common? And then later on, putting that into our journey, but also looking at our journey in, or putting our journey under the microscope, and making sure that we actually keep on measuring so we can optimize, right? So some stuff will work, some stuff won't work, and you might see that nobody clicks on that special email that you send out because of that point. And that is something you can obviously then adjust. And the power of data here is that it can help us to make decisions and see a way forward, rather than just going in the dark and trying things out because we have heard maybe on the internet somewhere that this is the best practice. We can really go
Yeah.
out and customize our journey to our customers, to our journey, to our online business.
Yeah, and we're talking about efficiency. So some of you all who don't have the money to hire full-time employees, or you even have to watch your budget for your freelancers, You can't afford to just be doing stuff and hoping that it works. You're putting money into your website, you're putting money into your CRM, you're putting money into your graphics, you're putting money into your messaging, you're putting money into your business overall. So you want to make sure that your efforts are yielding the biggest fruit, right, from them. And data is the key. How else? Do not rely on yourself to just feel like this is working or hope that it's working. You need data to be that truth teller. And sometimes it could be really humbling, what data tells us about what we think we know to be true. You mentioned we both have been talking about this journey, and are they really reading that email? Are they really going to the checkout page? So maybe you don't have a problem with your course before you go make a whole new course and say, hey, people aren't buying it. Well, they're not even getting there, right? They're not even clicking the links in the email that are getting there. But in the event that they are, and people start enrolling, we've now introduced a second capture point, which most businesses, I think, overall have two capture points. You've got a lead capture point, and then a lead conversion, and then a customer conversion. At that point, you still have all of the data from the marketing as well as the source. So, have you seen cases? Well, let me ask this first. Now that you have customers and you want to tie that customer data to sources and behavior as well, which is more important, by the way. Customer source is much more important than marketing source because these are the ones that are actually paying you money. And you want to see some consistency and say, hey, look, from our marketing side, we're seeing a lot of leads that are converting coming from Twitter, and then they're also the ones enrolling, right? That's the ultimate. Would you say, Julie, the question that I'm trying to get to here is, would you say that the customer conversion is the ultimate teller of the power of the source?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Okay.
that when we look at somebody becoming a customer, then we usually divide between micro conversions, macro conversions. Now, macro conversions are these big, hairy goals that you have when a user comes to your website. Why does your website exist? Well, it exists so people can buy my product and or my service. And if the customer reaches that goal, that is always time to celebrate. There are also
Mhm.
micro conversions which lead up to the macro conversion. So it might be a lead that is the user is maybe halfway there, but it's not full there yet. And obviously, the macro conversion is the most important part. If we have that available, if we have enough data available, then we are able to really optimize our marketing based on these macro conversions. Now, some business models have different macro conversions. So maybe for a SaaS business, it's not only the sign up to the monthly plan of $9, but actually then the retention over many years to come. And so the source might only reveal itself after 3 or 4 years that it's been the most consistent source for the business. So you can't always tie it down to the actual conversion of the first payment. It all depends on the business model, definitely. But I would say yes. Once you are able to get the macro conversion captured and tied to the initial source, then you are golden and can do a lot with it.
Yeah, and to keep us moving, this is really good, by the way. You just got my mind is just spinning. This is what data does to me anyway. So we've got the customer conversion, right? This is our macro conversion. This is the main one because we have indicators up until that point, Julian, right? We've got these leads coming from Facebook and Twitter, like I mentioned. Those are indicators that those sources may be good for us. The behaviors that we're observing, they're all indicators, but we don't know until they become a customer. Once they become a customer, it validates that journey. It validates everything that we've seen, and now it informs us with what we need to do or how to expect to go find more people like that, right?
Right.
So this is, your marketing and sales alignment, sales funnels, all of those things. I don't mean to gloss over it. This is an entire profession. right? We just talked about digital marketing in like one sentence. However, when they become the goal with data is to pay attention to behaviors, look at trends to get leads to become customers, right? But once they become customers, the game changes because I'm no longer looking at your behavior as much as a lead. Now I'm looking at your behavior as a customer to turn you into another customer
Mhm.
over and over and over again. So it's this reiterative cycle, but I'm not saying I throw away that data of you as a lead, but my focus shifts. When we go into the retention portion of the customer journey, I'm now concerned about what are you doing and what can I observe that shows me when to put the next offer in front of you or how to keep you paying for that initial offer that you got, right?
Correct. Yeah, I think that when you look at onboarding, for example, can be very important for a business that helps you, for example, with a software tool. If you don't get the user onboarded correctly, he might churn or leave your product after a while, and you can make that out in the data. How many people have actually, um, for example, created a new project in the last 15 days, and if you have a productivity software, for example,
Hmm.
and that can give you an indication and even a churn probability of somebody who didn't do this. And you might be able, even with automation, then again, to reach out to that customer and encourage him to create that project, because you know that this is one of the success factors, the success path for somebody using your product in the long term. So there's a lot of data, again, when a user becomes a customer, to retain him. And that's something that is a science in itself. I mean, if you look at product analytics or product retention, even something as Facebook has become very good at keeping the user scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, right? So that has become also, Facebook isn't shy about this. This is a lot of data that they have crunched and found this out over a lot of experimentation. What makes the user actually keep them on the platform?
Yeah.
And you kind of want to do the same with your product or service.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, um, keeping them keeping a customer is where I see a lot of businesses lose sight of. They start to focus on new customers, more and more new customers. But I'll tell you, the data, the paying attention to your customer data is the most important data that you can look at. I promise you, everyone. Once you get some customers in and you see trends and you can start to talk to them, by the way, don't be scared to talk to your customers early on in business and continue to do so. But that data of a customer also is going to inform you on where to look for leads that would
Yeah.
more than likely convert to customers. And what I see people do, Julian, is they literally turn off the data after they become a customer. They're no longer watching, they're no longer listening, they're no longer tracking what that person is doing. To simplify this, everyone, surveys are amazing.
Oh, yeah.
If this is just overwhelming to you, like you guys lost me at UTM and everything else has just been over my head, let me bring you back in. Surveys are immensely valuable. I cannot tell you the amount of startups, and they range from construction industry all the way to tech, where timed surveys throughout the onboarding and the initial customer experience can provide so much feedback, so much information. Julian, I'm a huge fan of Airtable.
Oh, yeah.
So that feedback, regardless of what form I'm using for it, I'll make sure I dump it in the Airtable because it's easier for me to manipulate the data than any
Yeah.
CRM.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I like to mirror my CRM in Airtable just so I can look at the data quickly, group things,
Oh,
see
nice. Yeah.
what's what, right? Um, but timing those surveys at the right time. Some people have a 30-day onboarding, 14-day onboarding, 7-day onboarding. That information delivered to you in a database where you can start to see, oh wow, this is why you joined. These
Yeah.
are the features that you want to use most. Now, this is what they're saying, Julian. I love to believe what people say, but I've just learned to better believe what they do. So I like to couple that with the data that I can actually track.
Yeah,
So
that's
given
true.
me, I've got a membership site. One of the proponents of a membership site, everybody, the user is logged in.
Hmm.
You can see everything that they're doing along with the surveys and what they're saying, right?
Yeah. And I think I must agree. Surveys, everybody thinks of us when we think about analytics, that is data, and Google Analytics might seem a little bit overwhelming when you first log in. Here you see mainly aggregated data. So every time somebody comes to a website, opens up a site, it sends over this tracking request to Google Analytics. It's all aggregated into these reports. You can glean a lot of information, but you need to learn how to read this information as well. So that will take you some time. But if you want to make decisions fast, just have a customer conversation is number one, or these surveys, super easy. Google Forms. You send out a survey, you get that also into a spreadsheet, and
Yep.
just from reading it, even if you have only a few responses, you will be able to make decisions on the snap really fast. And maybe one thing where it ties into that other data point again, into our more quantitative data, when we ask these questions that have maybe a drop down. So, for example, what are you? Do you see yourself as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer, as a business owner or agency owner? These are really great categories that you can put into place, and we call them also segments. So in
Mhm.
analytics, you can segment your data based on the answers that have been given. And
Mhm.
this can even impact what target group you go after at the awareness stage, right? So all the way back to when the user signs up to your email list, you might already ask them, "Hey, what do you see yourself at?" And that might inform how you market to them. You can personalize these requests as well, and later figure out, again, when the user is a customer already, which groups are actually most likely to sign up to my product. And maybe you get on a phone call with somebody, or this all of these techniques that we have as our marketing in our marketing arsenal, we obviously could try them all out, and but we don't have really the time or the resources to do them all correctly. So let data inform that, what you should actually be doing and
Yeah.
where you should be going next, rather than just spray painting everything and trying everything out, just to see if it yields results.
Yeah, and what we're doing here, everyone who got overwhelmed with the techie talk, is we're telling you that you can still collect data old school. Talk to somebody. Talk to your customers. That's still a form of data collection. And if you want to start with tech, surveys, forms, now, I'm a stickler for asking for the right question, Julian. I
Mm.
it is my pet peeve is when I see a form and they're asking repetitive questions or they're asking for information that I know they're not going to use. It's just like this has nothing to do. The amount of kids that I have has nothing to do with branding. Like
Mm.
I want it for this business over here has nothing to do with kids. Why are you asking me how many kids I have? But a lot of people do that because they just start thinking, oh, I can collect all of this information and they
Mm.
get out of control. You still need to be strategic in the
Mm.
questions that you ask. So for my non-techie folks, think about what information would help you better serve the customers that you have right now. Do you know what part of your platform they like the most? Listen, I survey my community members quarterly and say, hey, look, this is what we're producing. What would you not miss if we stopped?
Mm.
And they'll tell me, like, hey, I really wouldn't miss this part. So why would I keep producing it? I'll put my effort into the things that they're like, if I left this community or I'm not leaving this community for these reasons, well, I'm definitely going to put energy into those reasons. Right. But this is not, Julian, that's not techie. That's just
No, that's sales.
strategy,
Yeah.
right? And making sure that you're talking to your customers, and the biggest piece is that you're always collecting data. One more thing I want to say is when somebody leaves your company, your product, your course, whatever the case is, it is also a great opportunity to ask them, what did we miss? What was missing in this experience that could have made you stay? And if you want to, you can even incentivize them with like a $5 Starbucks gift card.
Mhm.
That data, somebody's way out, that data that you can capture is invaluable because especially if you look at their customer record and realize, man, you've been with me for like 6 months. You're really valuable. What happened? And it's just blind spots, man. We don't, Julian, we're not smart enough.
Mm.
In that kind of data helps us identify the blind spots. Before we go, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about Measure School.
All right.
What is it and who is it for?
Right. So Measure School is our central YouTube channel, but also our website where we run a program in the back end called Measure Masters. Now, Measure Masters is already for professional marketers who want to learn the data driven way of digital marketing. So, if you are, for example, in an agency or if you're looking to start your freelance career, there are great ways to level up your what you are doing already and just be a little bit more data informed or data driven even. And for that, you need to know how to capture data, how to work with data and analyze it and uncover the hidden insights in the data, really.
Yeah.
And then later on, communicate that to your clients, your superiors, your stakeholders, so they can actually take action on it. Because oftentimes we are not the only ones who can actually act on that data, but there are really great people that can have a bigger impact than ourselves. So we need to get really great at communicating data as well. And that's what we teach within our Measure Masters program.
Yeah, and I love it. You all know I'm on the techie side of things. I found Julian before he had an official Measure Masters. He had a video on a script to do lead scoring and active campaign, and it was easy. So what I'm telling you is the way that he teaches and breaks down these analytics, I hope that this podcast reflected that accurately, but very patient and very clear in breaking these very technical things down for your business. So it's great for digital marketers to have a resource
Yeah,
dedicated to data collection, data decision making, you know, all of that. So we'll make sure that we link to that in the bio as well. Julian, I can't thank you enough for coming on to the podcast. My hope for every business owner is that you would not only control and capture your data, but you will start looking at it and never stop looking at it and
that's a
collecting
good
it
one.
to make decisions. If there's anything that you all walk away from, just like you look in the mirror every day. Julian, I've seen people rush out the house and they didn't look in the mirror. Well, guess what they're looking at? They're looking at reflections in windows and everything multiple times throughout the day. Your data is the
Yeah,
mirror of your business. Look at it every day.
yeah.
Please look at it every day. It'll make your life easier. Any parting words for our listeners from you, Julian?
Well, it was a pleasure being on. Thank you for the invitation, Chris.
Yes.
I would just say, just second that as well. I mean, data might seem overwhelming sometimes and messy, but once you learn the basics, it can be so powerful. It can transform your business, and that's why I would encourage everybody to start at least a little bit of their data journey. The right way, I would say, but yeah, take it easy at the beginning and capture the data, even if it's just a survey. That was already great
Hmm.
data that can make you see the world differently. And that is the power of data. And that's why I got into it so long ago. And I hope that makes a difference in your business life as well.
Yeah. Digital marketers, you have a resource. Measure School, measureschool.com. You have a resource to go and learn this data driven approach. CEOs and entrepreneurs who tech is just goes over your head. You now have a resource to send to your digital marketer. Okay, and it's the same, just like I admonish you all to say, hey, I'm techie, I'm a digital marketer, and I want to go deeper in automation. What we didn't discuss but I'll mention now is data and automation go hand in hand. I'm just the other side of the coin. We build the systems to deliver the data. But you still need to know what to do with the data. So you'll see Julie and I as brothers in arms on this battlefield, this marketing battlefield, trying to conquer all of the roadblocks and hindrances that are before you all when it comes to business growth. So hopefully, depending on where you're at in your journey, you've got two programs on the table here. You can go deeper in the automation side, you can go deeper in the analytics side. Guess what? At the end of the day, you're going to need both. You're going to need both. So, Julian, again, man, thank you so much for jumping on to the podcast. I really appreciate it. Everyone, all the links will be in the show notes for you to connect with Julian at Measure School, YouTube. What's the best URL for someone to go to if they want to find out about your academy as well as YouTube? Is it measureschool.com?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All
Measureschool.com.
right. Measureschool.com, everybody. Julian, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, great. I'll see you online, buddy.
All right.
All right.